Hey guys, it's Elon Musk, and today on the UnMusking Show, we're going to tackle a topic that's as close to my heart as launching cars to Mars. Loneliness. You know, it always feels kind of lonely being here at the top. This is the 25th episode of the show, and I'm always the only one in the studio. And it's not just a midlife crisis, as it may seem at first. When I say loneliness, I'm not talking about a relaxing evening spent alone with a book in one hand and a cup of cocoa in the other. We are talking about isolation, when there is no one to share your joys and sorrows with, and despair becomes the main emotion of the day. Loneliness as a social phenomenon affects our entire lives, including politics and economics. The World Health Organization recently stopped fiddling with the COVID and recognized the loneliness epidemic as a global priority. This year, the Commission on Social Connections began its 3-year term. Now it's official. Loneliness is more harmful to health than fast food, smoking, and alcohol. Only drugs are deadlier, but they also invade people's lives through loneliness. California and New York have passed resolutions declaring isolation an official public health emergency, joining the governments of the UK, which has an entire minister for loneliness, and Japan. Speaking of which, the problem is acute in Japan. The other day, they passed a law to support single people at the federal level. The country is still struggling to cope with the 80-50 problem, which is the phenomenon of isolated poor families, where 80-year-old parents are forced to take care of their 50-year-old reclusive children. Things are no better in South Korea. The country has started paying single young people $500 a month to re-enter society. The country has 5% of them. Recently, the first nationwide survey among young singles was conducted there. There is nothing to brag about yet. 3 out of 4 respondents said they had considered suicide, and more than 80% said they wanted to escape the situation but couldn't. It turns out that $500 is not the only way to be happy. And today we're going to figure out where humanity has taken a wrong turn and how loneliness could be a danger to the entire planet. The problem has been brewing for decades. The worst off are people with health and financial problems, single parents, the elderly, and the youth. Since the 1980s, the level of loneliness has doubled. Among working adults alone, 62% of respondents feel lonely. 15% of surveyed men reported having no close friends, which is a 5-fold increase from 30 years ago. The same increase level was noted for women. Overall, more than 40% of respondents in Afghanistan and Uganda report strong feelings of loneliness, making people in Africa and Southwest Asia the loneliest. In comparison, Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Russia are the best off, with less than 10% of respondents feeling lonely. Considering 8 months of winter, you have to huddle together to keep warm, and then you can chat in between. Speaking of those who like to get warm and chat, our special correspondent Tucker Carlson is on the line with us. Tucker, hi, where are you now?
Hi, Elon. I'm in Finland. I wanted to talk to someone, but everyone's in the saunas. I can see them talking to each other in there, though. Do you know why? You can't bring a smartphone into the sauna to stare silently at funny videos.
That's a great strategy to combat isolation. You can't see anything in Steam, so if you can't see the problem, then there is no problem.
I guess Biden's government never gets out of the sauna. Oh, there's an opening in there. Will you join me?
No thanks. The internet can barely stand you clothed. It will not survive your nude version. What's the actual problem? People just sit at home and don't bother anyone. Oh no, call 911. In fact, it's an alarming trend. We are social species. Our ability to build relationships has taken us through millennia of hunting for food to escaping predators. Hundreds of years ago, men knew nothing of loneliness. If you want to see the next dawn, you sit in a tribe, which is up to 150 people in one family. If you don't like big crowds of people, you become someone's breakfast, when saber-toothed tigers were no longer a daily threat. Religion brought people together. It provided answers to the meaning of life, hope, and a set of rules, such as don't kill, don't steal, wash your hands more often, that made the members of the group safe for each other. And at the same time, a group of friends with the same set of values who were ready to come to each other's aid. A good reason to get out of the house and gather around a common totem, altar, and temple. In ancient times, political institutions were established and people began to assert their civil rights. It is impossible to do this alone, so new associations emerged: Greek polis, Roman senates, and medieval guilds, followed by familiar parties and trade unions. And what's important is that all these communities were united by a common purpose, not just a place of residence. As you can see, over the centuries, social connections have become so rooted in our nervous system that their absence causes stress. Loneliness triggers the same reaction as hunger, but instead of food, it is the need for cuddles. But things have changed in post-industrial society. Today, nearly 1/3 of US households are not even a family, but just one person. People are less likely to gather in churches, synagogues, and mosques. American participation in labor unions has fallen by half. Things are no better in political parties, and the natural desire to belong to a community of people remains. As a result, cortisol levels rise to bring you back to people, and you ignore it. Excess cortisol increases inflammation and causes more disease. Loners are 30% more likely to have heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes, and 50% more likely to have dementia. Loners have a weaker immune system and higher susceptibility to infections. What are the reasons? Multiple factors came together. Curl your fingers, but there probably won't be enough. Research confirms that COVID-19 has intensified these emotions. Working remotely is a modern privilege, but it has come at the cost of losing deep personal connections. Then there is the internet. Roughly half of respondents flee from loneliness to television, podcasts, and social media instead of going out in public. Progress has made it unnecessary for us to leave the house. Want to go to the movies? Netflix isn't going to get you out of bed. Hungry? Try out delivery. Feel a lack of intimacy? Thousands of strangers on the internet will distract you from loneliness. Virtual connections only create the illusion of intimacy. In fact, our attention is scattered across multiple sources of dopamine stimulation, reducing the focus and quality of interactions. However, this is not our fault. User attention is now the main currency on the internet, with everyone from large corporations to your former classmates are competing in every way possible. Research conducted in the US has shown that social media users who spend more than 2 hours per day on social media are twice as likely to report feelings of isolation compared to those who spend less than 30 minutes online. Researchers attribute individualism, which dates back to the Renaissance, and industrialization as reasons for people leaving their rural communities in search of a better life in the city. The final stage of this development is hyper-individualism, which leads to the tendency of understanding ourselves primarily as separate entities rather than as members of a collective. Simply put, it is when your rights, freedoms, and autonomy become more important to you than your responsibilities and obligations. Hello to woke activists who may be unfamiliar with these two words. People pursue their own goals rather than common ones. On the one hand, you focus solely on what you want to achieve without wasting time on the others. On the other hand, people no longer waste energy on you. It's okay when you don't have any problems.
I just need a little bit of help right now.
You're not gonna get in here.
But in a moment of crisis, you are fighting for your life all alone. We haven't fully realized it yet, but the prehistoric guys seem to have been smarter than us. However, what is truly at stake, as we in the Western world often consider, it's democracy. German researchers have found a link between loneliness and anti-democratic attitudes, such as a tendency toward populism, belief in conspiracy theories, and authoritarian views. People see the world as a darker and more threatening place. They have less trust not only in other people, but also in their social environment and democratic institutions. And it goes two ways from there. The first one is political apathy. Singles do not believe in their own strength, and at the same time do not believe in social institutions. Therefore, they atomize and isolate themselves from the wider community. Politicians take advantage of this and reinforce this feeling using phrases like, "Live your life. It is impossible to influence anything. Just think about yourself." The second is radicalization. A survey of former extremists who were members of the Ku Klux Klan and the National Socialist Movement was conducted in the United States. Half of the respondents stated that it was the feeling of isolation and loneliness that led them to aggressive political views. Besides, when there are no connections in real life, there is no responsibility to real people. You can say anything you want to people on the internet and feel no shame for it. And that's what makes it interesting. The fault of radicalization is not only the desire to belong to a group, but also the desire to regain control over the situation. In a recent study, participants were told that they would share their ideas for supporting democracy in a video meeting with 2 other people. As the members of the group talked about themselves, the fake participants stopped listening, ignored them, and talked to each other. As a result, participants suggested more radical ways to support democracy, moving from nonviolent methods to material damage. Eventually, participants were willing to damage property on behalf of the Animal Liberation Front terrorist organization in order to regain the attention of their listeners and control over the situation. We can already see the radicalization of both the extreme left and right in the United States. No one is ready to communicate. Society is polarized to the extreme. A new civil war starts in 3, 2, 1. I'd like to share a successful case study with you, but it is not there yet. Or rather, there is, but in the areas of Mongolian yurts and African huts. I haven't got internet there yet, so they can't tell us anything. Everywhere in the civilized world, people feel lonely and don't yet know what to do about it. As part of my purely comedic show, I have a couple of suggestions. Feeling lonely? Consider starting a blog about healthy lifestyle. Soon you'll have people eager to tell you that you're doing it all wrong. It is so weird that a service for renting friends does not exist yet. You don't need to leave the house. You can have a friend sent to you at a convenient time. You share your favorite topics to joke about, and when you get bored, simply click order completed, instead of yawning and hinting about going to sleep. In fact, the world needs to engage the institutions where people spend most of their time: families, schools, community organizations, and workplaces. The movement needs to start from both the top and the bottom. At the top, by funding as many leisure organizations as possible and defining a common idea at the federal level. I would like it to be the idea of universal prosperity, or at least the colonization of Mars. Even if the goal is against something, let it be a movement that unites us against a common enemy, rather than pitting Democrats against Republicans or vice versa. For instance, North Korea is a country that frustrates both liberals and conservatives. Moreover, given that they lack internet access, how would they even know that we are against them? And from the bottom up, through self-governance. We have realized that everyone has enough rights. It is time to give people responsibilities at the grassroots level, so they can feel their power and influence on their small, separate territory. If your neighbor's grass is greener, you should not be envious. You should ask him what he uses to water it and buy it for all your neighbors. Yeah, to sum up, loneliness is not a problem of a few, but of the whole planet. I want to take this opportunity to address the world's leaders. They are definitely listening to me, even if they don't admit it. It is up to you to take action. One way is to come up with common goals for the whole country, but not to create a superior race. Let's agree on that right away. Better yet, choose sustainable development, reducing social inequality, protecting the environment, affordable health care. And don't forget to talk about these goals every day. I have nothing against such propaganda. It can help people feel that they are working together on something important, making progress on it, and will make society a friendlier and more caring place. And just to give you a little motivation, those who don't unite with the people will not be taken to Mars with me when this planet is finished.